Hey guys, I'm King of Legends. Welcome back. So, welcome to the second half of part two of Naruto's reincarnation of Origin. This should be, well, in total, these two parts should add up to be around 2 hours to make up for that special I messed up. I think I explained the first part, but if I didn't, I'm just gonna say it again. Basically, I had spring break last week. I had spring break last week, but due to some thumbnail problems, basically. So anyway, well, I don't want to do a video without a thumbnail because it just doesn't feel right. Anyway, let's get back into the story. So where we left off, pretty sure it was after Zabuza and Haku had been defeated. The whole reason I split this up into two parts was because I was really tired and it was like 2 a.m. so I had to sleep. But anyway, Zabuza and Haku had been defeated. Pretty sure Kakashi would same thing would have still happened to Kakashi because Kakashi was still fighting Zabuza, so he would have collapsed. Naruto would have been fighting Haku, but he wouldn't feel much drain at all since he didn't use very much chakra. He was mainly using Taekwondo, so he wouldn't feel all that drain. So he could actually lift Kakashi with one hand, put him on his shoulders, and piggyback him to Kazuno's house. As they arrive, see Inari and Kazunumi, I believe her name is, waiting at the door. As she'd be happy to see, as Kazunumi would be happy to see her father again, Inari would be basically kind of like Sasuke, be emo about it, be all grouchy and all that shit. But not that. I know it sounds like I have a problem with Sasuke. I don't really have a problem with him. I just didn't like the fact he was an arrogant prick. But continuing on. Well, please get to dinner that night, where Inari would still go on about how they're all gonna die and they don't know pain and all of this. As Naruto, being hot headed, like I said in the first part, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if I said that in the first part, but due to Morrigan's influence and his original personality, they're kind of more like Morrigan influenced his personality, so he's even more hot headed than he was before. Morrigan was not a calm person at all. Well, when he'd be calm when he wanted to be, but that didn't happen all that often. Naruto would still yell at Inari, telling his story, Sasuke's story too, because Uchiha Massacre did happen. As Inari would still run away and go crying, but this time, instead of running upstairs, he'd run into the forest. No, he'd still run upstairs. Kakashi, I'm pretty sure. No, I'm pretty sure it was. I don't know who it was who talked to him. Pretty sure it was Kakashi. It was either Kakashi or I'm pretty sure it was Kakashi. No, nobody talked to him. Naruto talked to him when he got back, I'm pretty sure. But Kakashi would still, well, he would still have to explain Naruto's story to Tazunami and Tazuna, while whoever talked to Inari talked to him. Well, Naruto was blowing off some steam in the forest because he got really mad about that. As he began to train. As he trained and trained and trained in all the ways he could think of. Chakra control, he'd fight his clones, he'd literally make millions of clones and fight all of them. and the battle would be over in about 20 minutes. As then, well, he'd be getting stronger, but he wouldn't be getting tired. Mori Jin is basically so you know how super fuel efficient cars have like well basically if you were to take like hold on you think let's just say the fuel tank of a Hummer because they have massive fuel tanks. You would put it in an extremely fuel efficient car like a I don't think I know any fuel efficient cars. I'm sad. Like a BMW, I guess. A hybrid BMW because they're really fuel efficient. I'm sure they should be. But anyway, you would have put the fuel tank of a Hummer and a hybrid BMW. You'd basically you wouldn't run out of fuel all that often because well you have a lot of it and your car doesn't need very much of that at a time. So yeah, that's essentially what Naruto is. Seeing as he's a Senju, he has tons of chakra, as well as being a Uzumaki, as well as being Morijin's reincarnation, so it's like stacking and stacking. Because Morijin has an absolute massive source of energy. Half the time, I don't think he needs to sleep, but he just sleeps anyway because he's lazy like that. It's very rare you'll see him run out of energy. Well, at least in the middle of a fight, that is. Because he almost never goes full power. Well, full power as his complete full power, but not full power. But he goes to the full extent of his power at that point. But because of how reckless he is, he's always destroying his body. So, you know. Anyway, continuing on. Naruto wouldn't actually be tired. He'd actually end up training all night long. As the Haku encounter would still happen. Actually, I'm not going to skip over that because something important happens here. Anyway, so the Haku encounter happens, and seeing as this is still part two, I'm going to give y'all this video to give me any sort of ship idea because I really want the audience to be interactive in this video because, well, it's kind of a two-way thing. Well, I'd like this to be more of a two-way thing where the audience has some influence on the story. And, well, can't really make polls, so, you know, kind of have to ask you in the video. So please leave a ship idea down in the comments. I'm gonna put it in the title of this video to leave ship ideas. Might put it in the description as well, just to make sure you guys remember. It's either you guys have been forgetting or you just don't care enough to give me an idea. But I need to progress the series, and I can't sit around waiting for you guys to give me an idea. So sorry to rush you guys, but kind of need an idea. So anyway, well, no, well, he talked with Haku. Haku would go into the speaking of precious ones, as Naruto would think, I don't have anyone precious to me, as he realized that all he's ever done in any of his lives was fight. As he remembers his original life, he had a love, but he kind of disregarded it after she died. So he hasn't felt any sort of affection whatsoever since then. And that was millions of years ago, as he realizes just how lonely he is in this moment. As Haku would leave life in canon, Naruto would know that it's, well, he wouldn't know because he hadn't gotten a good, he hadn't actually smelled Haku that well because he was too busy trying to dodge his ice needles. So Haku, Haku would be kind of scot-free, but Naruto now remembers his scent because they shook hands and everything. So, well, Naruto, Naruto would pledge to himself right then and there that he'd find, well, someone to love because he never really did that in any of his past lives. Anyone he had even the slightest bit of interest in died, really. Well, yeah. Or, and after a certain point, he just stopped looking for it. So he basically, he's basically going to find love again. And since the gods aren't really there to interfere with him, well, they can't. Well, he's kind of free to do whatever. And Naruto would actually train on Morgan's powers. Like I said in one of the parts, I remember I said it was kind of like Kaioken, had the same sort of side effect as it makes him lose control of his body if he overuses it or he pushes it. Well, more of a mix of Deku's and his. If he uses it, if he uses Morgan's power too often at too high of a percentage, it does the thing how Ken does. But if he uses it too high, like all at once, like if he were to go, I'm pretty sure I said he can use 20% now. If he goes full 20%, it will destroy his body, kind of like how it did with Deku. So, like if you were to punch something, it'd break his arm, which he has not broken his arm before because his body is extremely durable. But his body is not exactly fit for Morrigan's full power yet, as Morrigan's wasn't either when he was reborn, which is why he had to train so much. And it's kind of how they set it up to where he'd have to find his artifacts and slowly gain his power back. Because the crown was basically holding him back, kind of how the One for All users hold Deku back, so he doesn't kill himself. So, anyway, Naruto, after making this pledge, would go back to the Tasuno's house, where he would sleep, due to him being extremely lazy, would still wake up late. He would hear the bandits. He'd basically insta-kill the two bandits. As I don't know how far I got. I don't think I got. I think I got to two exams, but I'm just gonna start from here. Anyway, Naruto would basically kill the two bandits pretty easily. Well, if you see how Morrigan's kicks actually deal damage to people, he actually kicks them so hard that it blows the part of the body that he actually made contact with away, like it vaporizes it. So you don't see the area where he kicked them anymore. It's more like a big, like hole, like he kicked them through reality or something. He kind of just warped around that area, so it looks weird. And so if he were to kick him, if he were to kick one of the thugs in their heads, well, there'd just be a weird little half ring around their shoulder, like from shoulder to shoulder, basically. That's basically what I'm talking about. I don't see where the head goes, it just vaporizes, so he killed the thugs and get rid of them before Inari or his mother even noticed. And basically, he'd realized that Gato is acting like now, so he needs to get to the bridge as soon as possible because he knows that Sasuke cannot hold off the the Hunter Ninja. But he knows Kakashi will be fine against Zabuza because Zabuza can't use the water prison again because he'd still be injured. So Naruto leaving leaving a few not shadow clones, he'd leave more Yui there. As he'd make some more normal monkey clones as he'd tell them to eliminate the rest of Gato's thugs that are just hanging around in the town, but don't approach Gato's base just yet. As when they're done, just disappear. As they go and they just eliminate the 10 or so thugs that are scattered around the town, Naruto would make it to the bridge. Because Naruto would actually take over Sasuke's fight with Haku. Because Naruto trains him, he would actually be a little bit faster than Haku, even if Haku is doing his reflecting off the ice mirrors thing. I'm pretty sure that's what he was doing. And he was moving at the speed of light doing it. Well, not the speed of light because there was resistance from the wind and that ice mirror thing. So Naruto would actually be able to catch Haku while he was basically moving across the mirrors, as he basically punch Haku out of the mirror wall, basically. So Naruto would not want to kill Haku, even before realizing who he was, because he thinks Haku is a good person, but he's just serving Zabuza. As as Naruto saw that he directly obeys Zabuza, and only Zabuza. So Naruto, being a genius but hot-headed, would see that Haku is just serving under Zabuza and his orders. So he'd basically incapacitate him, as then he'd go to Zabuza as he'd take over from Kakashi. As Naruto still being pretty fresh because he didn't do that much against Haku. Plus Haku was basically still doing the same mirror attack thing. By the way, when Naruto punched Haku out of the ice mirrors, it did break his mask. So Naruto knows who he is. Well, he would have recognized his sin anyway. But he didn't say anything. So Zabuza, well, he'd be fighting Zabuza as he'd basically disable Zabuza's arms with acupuncture by weaving through his attacks. As Zabuza wouldn't be able to hold his executioner's blade, so he'd just be using his legs, which I don't think Zabuza has much control over. And Naruto being a Taekwondo specialist, or three Taekwondo specialists, would easily be able to stop any and all kicks Zabuza throws at him. So he'd basically get Zabuza to the point of where he could kill him pretty easily, as he'd make Zabuza a deal. And what I mean by he could kill him easily, he basically has him to the point where if he were to hit him in this one spot, or basically he has him in a hold to where if he makes a certain movement, it'll kill him. Guaranteed, and there'll be no coming back from it. Well, you know what I mean. Not talking about original type stuff here. So, not talking about that. But anyway, Naruto would, well, he'd put Zabuza in his hold, as he'd offer Zabuza a deal. Zabuza, with no way out, and not wanting to die and leave Haku by himself, would say yes, because Zabuza actually cares about Haku in this. Well, Naruto would offer him to come to the Leaf Village. Well, at the very least, come to the Leaf Village. Even if he doesn't want to be a Leaf Ninja, he could just serve under him. As Mori Huey, well, while he's doing this, Mori Huey would have told him that more thugs had come to Tatsuno's house to take Inari and Taizumi yet again because the other two didn't report in. So Naruto would have been prepared for Gato's. Well, now it would have been about 70 men who would have attacked since, well, the clones had killed all the ones that were just casually running out of town. Mori Huey had killed another 10 of them, well, another 20 of them. As out of 130 were already dead. So, and Kakashi, Zabuza, and Sasuke were all drained. Sakura was useless as usual, so none of them would be able to fight off all of these men. Naruto would actually have an idea, as he'd been waiting for the perfect opportunity to test out this idea, basically. As he'd call over the club, I kind of gave it away when I said that, but he'd call over his club, as he'd tell his club to strike them 2,000 times. As as soon as he said this, the whole sky would turn black, basically looking like it's night. As all you'd be able to see is red lightning striking the ground over and over again 2,000 times. As all of Gato's men would definitely be dead by this point because he could have already strike like 70 times, but there was a chance it could miss. But since he did order it to strike 2,000 times, there was no way they could escape. Some tried to get in the water and just struck the water, so they kind of electrocuted themselves. So Gato was the only one left because Gato was behind all of his men, and he got out of the way before it happened, having a bad feeling about it. He won't get away scot free though. So Naruto actually thought he had a feeling Gato would just slip away because that's kind of how Gato's personality is. He's a little snake, basically. Not like Orochimaru, but the ugly kind, basically. Not the pedophile kind. So Naruto would have checked in behind the area where he would see Gato hiding behind a barrel. As he'd pick up Gato and throw him to the villagers, where they would basically handle him. As well, the bridge would be named. Actually, the bridge would not be named the Great Naruto Bridge. It'll be named the Bridge of the Monkey King because that's what Naruto wanted to name it. As it would have little eye mask symbols all over it because Naruto, well, that's basically Naruto would actually make that the symbol of him. As a Cloud Shinobi would have seen this, she would have put Naruto in the Bingo book, naming him the Monkey King Mori Jin. As Naruto would be a B rank shinobi in the Bingo book, as news got back to the village before Naruto and the others arrived, as the third Hokage would be incredibly proud and worried for Naruto because, well, one, he's in the Bingo book, which is a huge achievement for a Genin, and two, he's in the Bingo book, which is also a huge danger for a Genin.
So he'd be both proud and worried, but seeing as Naruto wasn't there, he decided to be proud, at least until Naruto got back. And afterward, he would congratulate Naruto and warn him of the dangers of being in the big boat. So, you know, Naruto, well, Naruto would have, well, Naruto, why do I read this? Naruto and the others would have returned to the village about 2 weeks earlier than in canon, because Naruto would have easily just made a bunch of funds to finish building the bridge. It would have been finished earlier. Naruto could ride his cloud back home, so he'd have to find a way to get the others back. So he decided to use Yaoi, as he basically expanded it and made it basically into like a giant. It's basically like a giant tree trunk. The way you'd carry a tree trunk and someone would just sit on it. The way someone would sit on a log. Naruto would carry them back to the village. As before they got to the village gates, Naruto would fly down, shrink Yaoi, and he'd get off the cloud and let it go back into the sky and do whatever it normally does. Mori Huey would have disappeared by this point too, so just saying that because I didn't address it earlier. As well, Naruto would walk to the village. Naruto and the others would walk the mile or so back to the village because Naruto didn't want villagers seeing him flying because that would just get them more freaked out and more, well, more toxicity would come to them basically. Because the villagers were basically being toxic, but you can't really escape from toxicity in real life when you live in the toxicity. So instead of just instead of basically he's basically doing if it ain't broke, don't mess with it. So he decided not to mess with the villagers' opinion of him because they think he's weak. So he's not showing them anything until the tuning exam. But anyway, see, I could have so much to put in the tuning exams if you guys gave me a ship idea already. But anyway, I'm gonna have to just wing it, I guess. Anyway, well, he'd go back. They'd be there a week early. Naruto would, as soon as he got back and he talked to Todokage congratulated him, warned him about the dangers of the Bingo book. Well, he told him about the Bingo book and warned him of the dangers of it. Kakashi was pretty surprised that Naruto had already gotten in the Bingo book because he knew it would happen at some point, but he didn't think it happened this early. So Naruto would be really happy that he got in the Bingo book, but at the same time, he'd take the third Hokage's warnings pretty seriously because he himself knows that this could happen. This very well could happen. So Naruto would take this warning to heart. As he was leaving, he'd begin to think, will this get in the way of my pledge? Because, well, he'd have that pledge on his mind at all times. He didn't focus on it like all the time, but whenever he was just thinking, his mind would drift to it. Because Haku's statement like really made an impression on him. Speaking of Zabuza and Haku, they'd be there too. As Third Hokage would have made Zabuza a Jonin, Haku would have been a Chunin, as they would actually, well, Zabuza said he'd have money, would get his own house. Haku, yeah, take back the part where I said Haku was a guy. Well, never mind. Never mind. I'll deal with that some other way. Haku would Haku would actually end up staying at Naruto's house because, well, basically, I want it to be that way. There would be no actual reason for him to stay there because, well, Zabuza still there and he bought his own house. Let's just say Zabuza buys a house in the same apartment complex as Naruto, and Haku decides to go there from time to time to hang out with him. And Haku stays over at times because, well, he basically talks with Naruto till late at night because Naruto doesn't do much reflection on himself unless Haku is talking with him. And Haku realized that, and he's realized how emotionally undeveloped Naruto is. So he decides to basically act like an emotional tutor to Naruto because, well, he has no development at all. So Naruto will be less dense, but Naruto will be less dense after these talks. So, well, yeah, he'll be less dense after these talks, and he'll be able to understand people emotionally, at least better than he did. Because Mori was about as dense as a tungsten block. And for those of you who don't know what tungsten is, it's basically the world's strongest metal. It's extremely heat resistant, and basically it's stronger than titanium by like many times. It's like 5 times stronger than steel, I'm pretty sure. Not 5, it's like 60. But tungsten is extremely heat resistant, but it's also incredibly expensive due to the difficulty of mining it. Because the only way to mine tungsten is with tungsten. The same way, the only way you can cut a diamond is with a diamond. Due to their hardness, you can't really mine it with anything other than itself. And no, diamond cannot cut tungsten. Well, I'm sure it can. It'd probably chip off. Anyway, continuing on. As we get to the day, Konohamaru, Naruto and Sakura are, Naruto runs into Sakura just walking through the village. As they start hanging out, as Naruto would run into Konohamaru, sneaking up behind them like usual. Except this time, Naruto would be completely oblivious because he doesn't really care about that because he knows none of the villagers can hurt him. He isn't on guard to sneak attacks as much as usual. As he fixed the durability problem with chakra enhanced weapons, so Haku's ice needles can no longer pierce him unless Haku puts more chakra into it. When I mean more chakra, I mean like a lot more chakra. To the point where it's inefficient for Haku to throw ice needles at Naruto. So he he has almost complete immunity to chakra enhanced weapons. But he has complete immunity to regular weapons. Anyway, Naruto, Konohamaru running away from Sakura because he made those same comments as he did in canon, would bump into Kankuro. And Kankuro would still do the same thing, as he'd feel a hand on his shoulder. As Naruto would be there, as he'd tell him to stop, because Naruto can run extremely quickly. And seeing as Naruto was able to catch up with Haku, moving at the speed of, just below the speed of light, I'd say he'd be able to do that. Because he can basically flash step. Actually, I'm just gonna say he has swift release because why not? He's not gonna use many jutsu in this. He's gonna use more gentle attacks mainly and a bit of plant style when he needs it. And yes, I know wood style and plant style are extremely similar, but plant style is just something I decided to make up one day because, well, I don't know. I was just wondering why it wasn't our style. Then I decided to look it up and realized wood style has most of the same properties, but I wanted to put my own spin on it, so I named it plant style. So anyway, Naruto would put his hand on Kakuro's shoulder as he would have told him to let Haru go. I know I go off topic a lot, but I need to stop doing that. But I need to do something to get rid of all these thoughts in my head. It's kind of how ADHD works. You think of a lot of things at the same time to the point where you can't focus on anything. Let me continue the video because I know I'm taking forever. This video is probably going to be an hour, but anyway, well, Naruto would basically put his hand on Kakuro's shoulder, telling him to stop. Kakuro would say, "And what are you going to do about it?" As Naruto would increase his grip on Kakuro's shoulder, pressing an acupoint on his shoulder to where he loses control of his arm and he drops Konohamaru. As then Kakuro, being pretty mad, would try to punch Naruto, but Naruto would just dodge it as he gut shot him, basically sending him on his knees, as he had winded him, and he can only use one arm at the moment, so, he's feeling pretty bad at the moment. As Garo would come down, telling Kakuro to stop, and to tell him to stop being a waste of space before he kills him. As Kakuro would get scared, as he'd say, "Okay, Garo," as Tamari would basically nag him about how he shouldn't have done it in the first place, as he'd just grumble as they'd leave. Well, after Gar talks with Naruto about getting his name and how he's going to kill him in the Chunin exam. Naruto just smiles at this and says, "I hope it'll be a good fight," as they basically leave. As we skip to, well, Kakashi calling them to meet for the Chunin exam. Calling them to meet, telling them about the Chunin exams, Naruto would say he already knew, and so would Sakura. Sasuke, who had been training this entire time to catch up with Naruto, would basically be like he's living under a rock, so he wouldn't know anything. Sasuke would be extremely desperate to catch up with Naruto because of how much power he has, and he knows Naruto is stronger than Itachi by this point because, well, he's a strong. If Itachi is only like slightly stronger than Kakashi, which Itachi is not that much stronger than Kakashi. It's just that Kakashi's extremely vulnerable to Genjutsu, and Itachi kind of has his Mangekyo Sharingan, and Kakashi doesn't even have. Well, Kakashi isn't supposed to have a Sharingan, but he has one anyway. So that's kind of a huge weakness on his part. If Kakashi was an Uchiha, he'd be stronger than Itachi for sure. I should make that thing in one of my winners if Kakashi was in Uchiha. But he'd be half Uchiha. So the Uchiha Massacre, he'd be overlooked. Because no one would actually know he's Uchiha and think, well, he got his eyes from Obito. Anyway, continue on. Moving on to the, well, Sasuke and Naruto would say yes. Sakura would be a bit nervous. But due to being inspired to train by Naruto and Sasuke's strength, she would actually have started her, uh, I wouldn't say health training, I'd say, not, what am I talking about? I'd say she'd be, I don't know, she'd probably be the strength she was about, I don't know, a couple of weeks, not a couple of weeks, about a couple of months into her training with Tsunade. So she'd be around high getting level at this point, and would be the same strength as a Ganon. So Sakura would destroy the tuning exams, but we're not talking about that at the moment. So Sakura would nervously say yes because she doesn't know how strong she actually is because she hadn't tested it on anyone yet. As then, well, we get to the tuning exams, where Rock Lee would still challenge Sasuke. Sasuke with his, I'm gonna say, because I hate the imperfect Sharingan, he's gonna have Tutsumo in both eyes. So, it's still not gonna help him against Rock Lee. Rock Lee is still gonna body him. He's too fast for a Tutsumo Sharingan. As Lee would try to do the primary Lotus, but stop at the last minute because Guy interfered. As Guy would basically do a dramatic entry on Lee, sending him into a wall, doing kind of like what Bond and Meliodas do every time they reunite with each other, but not as much destruction. But anyway, well, Rock Lee would get knocked into the wall, as Sasuke would still do the dumbass thing to shout out the Genjutsu, or to call out the two tuning for the Genjutsu, as Naruto would just laugh at him because of how stupid that was. As, as Sasuke would look at Naruto and ask, why is he laughing, dope? And Naruto would explain that the whole point of that Genjutsu was to eliminate competition, and you just helped everyone else here and lower their own chances by calling out the Genjutsu. As everyone around them would laugh at Sasuke, would be pretty pissed off about this, but he'd ignore it for now, knowing he can't beat Naruto, as they just continue to the room where Kabuto was basically handing out information about all the other uh, all the other teams. And through these couple of weeks, seeing as Naruto was in the bingo book, Third Hokage let him do solo missions. So Naruto, in this time of about 2 weeks, had done 2 B rank missions and an A rank mission. So somebody would ask for information. Let's say it would be, let's just say it was Gara. No, it'd be a random sound, not sound shinobi, random, uh, let's actually just say it'd be a random Miss Shinobi. Because I'm pretty sure the Miss were in the, no, the Miss weren't. Actually, just let it be a random Cloud Shinobi. Because the Cloud Village would be in these shooting exams. Because I want them to be. As the Cloud Village would know about the attack, but they would just let the Leaf Village get attacked just to see how they would hold out against the attack. Though, not to seem suspicious, they would send out a few ninja to help. And afterward, just act like that was all they could spare because they're preparing for war with the Sand anyway. Well, not prepared. They're preparing for war against the Sound Village. For attempting to steal the Two-Tails Jinchuriki Yugito. As they were actually going to declare war on the Sound Village, But they heard about the attack on the Leaf Village, so they decided to wait until the Talon's forces were weakened, as they could finally just crush them. But anyway, well, Cloud Village was here. They mainly did this to observe the Sound Village. Well, not the Sound Village, the Sand Village, because they had seen that they're allies with the Sound. So they're watching the Kazekage and they're getting closer. So would, well, Naruto would have, well, not Naruto, this random Cloud Shinobi would have asked information on Naruto, Gaara, and, who else? Rock Lee. No, Neji, because he was a prodigy of the Hyuga clan. As he chased the information on Gaara, where he had, like, 0 D ranks, 20 C ranks, 0 B ranks, and an A rank, where he was never hurt during a mission. As he'd go for Naruto's information, where Naruto, he'd have 20 D ranks, 2 C ranks, 2 B ranks, and an A rank. As it would read that he is a B rank ninja in the bingo book, and he has immeasurable strength. And if you run into him, uh, do not attempt to flee, as it will only goad him into fighting you. As he can be beat by a team of at least 2 A rank shinobi. Or two A rank shinobi. Well, one of a team of at least 2 A rank shinobi. Has has a weakness to chakra enhanced weapons because they have not been yet. But this ninja had seen Haku's Senbone pierce Naruto, but nothing else could. So they would say he has a weakness to chakra enhanced weapons. As it showed Neji's information, the 20 D ranks and the C rank. It should say Prodigy of the Uchiha clan, as he would have no rank in the bingo book. But it would say Invaluable Prodigy of the Hyuga clan, nephew of their leader, Hiyashi Hyuga, and he'd actually have a bounty from the Cloud Village because, well, Neji had killed a few of their ninja who had tried to take him not long after the graduation exam. Well, tried to kidnap him not long after the graduation exam because he was just walking around the village. So, as Neji would be pretty pissed off that someone had asked for his information because he thinks that'd be private because he's a Hyuga and all other bullshit. So we skip to the first exam. I'm making this so much longer than it has to be. Naruto would pass this exam with flying colors, as Ibuki's trick would not work on him because Naruto is way too confident in himself to let that happen. So Anko would swing in through the window as, well, she tell everyone go to the Force of Death. Naruto would have trained in the Force of Death because it's one of the few places he could get away from the villagers and be with the animals, as the animals in the Force of Death liked Naruto, but any animals that were aggressive to him basically got killed. Because when he first went into the Force of Death, he did not have Yaoi yet, because he had just started his training, and he had not learned to summon Yaoi. I'm pretty sure he could summon Yaoi. I don't know if he could or not, but He had not learned to summon Yelly yet, so he did not have Yelly. So he only used Hashirama's fighting style and a bit of Re-Taekwondo. As he easily killed the animals who tried to attack him. As when he approached the other animals, at first they were scared of him because he did kill the ones that were stronger than them. But they realized that he seemed somewhat like an animal due to his monkey-like abilities and movements and scent. So they eventually warmed up to him like people do to each other, and they kind of just chill with him. So he trains in the Forest of Death. As there's the Forest of Death is like half a mile bigger because he did train on the Deep Forest Emergence and the Forest of Death. So Naruto would, well, yeah, he would train the Deep Forest Emergence and the Forest of Death. So it'd be way bigger. It'd be about twice the size it was in canon. Because the Force of Death was formed when Hashirama used Deep Force Emergence on Madara, I'm pretty sure, to stop the Nine Tails mixed with his Susanoo. And, well, you know, they kind of just named it the Force of Death because of all the animals that live there that kill people. So, Anka would have actually known Naruto trains in the Force of Death because she goes in the Force of Death herself to get away from all the glares the villagers give her. So they would be friends. But she would actually have to ignore that for the tuning exams because she can't really show any favoritism. So Naruto still wouldn't be paying attention because he knows how the Force of Death works. So he'd just be talking with, well, Sasuke, making a plan after the rules were, well, not after the rules were explained, but when the basics of this exam were explained. She'd just be talking about the form to sign, about how Leaf Villages are responsible. But Naruto would already know about this. Because Anko, knowing Naruto, knows the rules, but can't really show any favoritism, would still throw the kunai. She'd know what would happen, so she enhanced it with chakra, thinking Naruto still has a weakness to it. As they did train together from time to time. So, you know, she'd throw it, it'd just break against Naruto's skin. As Naruto, not really remembering that she can't really show favoritism, as he just say, it's not really nice to do to your training partner, is it? As Anko would just look at him like, are you stupid or something? As Naruto would kind of just scratch the back of his head, and he's like, why are you looking at me like that? So she'd just sigh and continue on explaining. As after they were done, well, would Naruto would he'd kind of just talk with Anko for about 15 minutes, as she'd explained that she couldn't show any favoritism during the test, so Naruto would finally understand, as he'd say, my bad, he kind of scratched his head like Goku does all the time. So, well, they'd go into the Force of Death. Well, they'd go into the Force of Death. Well, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura would. As we'd skip to, well, the same day. Yeah, that same day. Because I want them to get to the tower earlier. I don't like how they got there. That was pretty stupid. As well, Naruto would actually, well, Orochimaru still send the snake at Naruto. And Orochimaru, not knowing Naruto, not how strong Naruto is, but not knowing Naruto's true strength, just knowing what villagers say, knowing that he's stronger than your average Genin, would send two snakes at Naruto, which he'd still easily destroy by just sending a gust of wind at the both of them. As well, Naruto would go and look for Sasuke and Sakura as he'd speed around the forest of death. After he went around the forest of death about 15 times, he'd arrive where Sasuke and Sakura was. Sasuke would have already been bit. Naruto would get pretty pissed off at this because he knows how hard Sasuke worked for the power that he has. If he'd see that this was a curse mark and that it would basically mess with Sasuke's flow of energy, stopping him from using any sort of power that he has. So Naruto would make a mental note to seal that later. But at this moment, he was pretty mad, so he basically blitzed Orochimaru as they would go into an all-out battle. Naruto taking out Yali, getting the dragon armor and everything. As he'd go 10%. Well, not 10, he'd go 15% actually, because of how angry he was. And he just almost said full Kelling, but I'm not. This isn't my hero name. Well, anyway, Naruto would, well, Naruto would begin attacking Orochimaru ferociously, not giving him any sort of openings to attack or counter. Well, Orochimaru has been doing his best to block all of Naruto's attacks and parry. As Naruto would kick him away, as Orochimaru would make a wind tornado, Naruto would kick through it. He'd essentially just send a gust of wind from a kick at it, as it'd go right through it. As it would go towards Orochimaru, Orochimaru would dodge it, as Naruto would then be right there to punch him through a tree. As they continue on, kind of evening out due to Naruto kind of basically easing up to and releasing the dragon armor to do whatever it wants. So now he's back in his normal clothes and he's just fighting Orochimaru at 10% normal. Well, 15% normally. As the strain on his muscles is starting to, come, the way it's supposed to. So Naruto is now lowered himself down to 10%. As he's still at 15%, he was stronger than Orochimaru, but at 10%, they're basically even. So Orochimaru had begun to parry Naruto's attacks, as Orochimaru could actually leave damage on Naruto because of how strong physically he was and his methods of attacking. So if a snake and a monkey were to fight each other, just telling you right now, it would be a pretty hard fight, depending on what kind of snake it is. So, well, the monkey could grab the snake could just bite the monkey, so they'd kind of be stuck to each other, just staring each other down for a bit. If the snake was kind of bigger than stronger than the monkey would have a tough time. But Orochimaru is not stronger than Naruto, so the monkey, the hypothetical monkey, or in this case just Naruto and the snake being Orochimaru, well, Naruto would actually be even, as he'd start to get excited, as in I don't know if I said he put Yaoi back when he got rid of the dragon armor. He takes out Yaoi again and begins to use his pole arts because, he hadn't actually used them in a bit, as he had learned some from Mori. As Mori had, remember Mori. If you read the manga, Mori had actually trained in his pole arts rather than re-taekwondo because he needed something to give him a one-up on Morihei, which Morihei goes for power strikes and Mori goes through with flexibility and agility. Well, he goes for agility and speed. Before you guys get in the comments saying those are the same thing, they are not. Agility is more like your ability to dodge, and speed is just speed. Agility is more of your ability to dodge, counter, and all those other things. kind of agility involves speed, but it's not only speed. It's flexibility, maneuverability, and some other things that I don't feel like talking about right now. So Naruto would continue on fighting Orochimaru. Orochimaru would begin to get desperate because he was running low on chakra, but Naruto would still have plenty. Naruto would have completely forgotten to use his plant style due to his high-headed nature, so Naruto would not be running out of chakra either because he isn't using it. Naruto will, well, if Naruto learned to use chakra to enhance his attacks in this series, he'd be the most overpowered being to occur in my What If universe. Seeing as there are only two, yeah, he'd be the most powerful so far. Well, it'd be debatable whether he's more powerful than, say, the six past Naruto. Especially when he and Hinata's powers are fused. But we're not talking about that. So, Naruto being fighting Orochimaru as Orochimaru would end up retreating because he'd run out of chakra. Sasuke, well, the sound beginning team would attack the three of them. Naruto would body all three of them easily, as Sasuke would have woken up and tried to attack Naruto. Naruto would have just knocked him out by hitting him in the temple with Yali, because if Morgan hits someone in the temple with Yali or kick, it will basically knock them out. I'm not sure how he's not killing them in this process because the temple is a very sensitive area, and if you hit it too hard, you could go blind, you could go deaf, or it could just kill you. But anyway, they take Sasuke to the tower, and instead of just Kakashi taking Sasuke to get the curse mark sealed, Naruto would seal it as well. But Naruto, being somewhat of a seal master from his grandpa Hashirama, would actually know how to seal Sasuke's curse mark without interfering with his chakra network. So it basically isolates the curse mark to where, unless Sasuke wants it to, it won't affect his chakra at all. And, well, kind of. It basically be on its own. Orochimaru could influence the curse mark, but it won't affect Sasuke's chakra. So he would refer to Orochimaru, and Orochimaru would try to influence his curse mark like he does with Anko. It wouldn't affect it at all. Speaking of Anko, Naruto actually fixed her curse mark a while ago as sort of a thank you for helping him train the Force of Death. So she wouldn't have to worry about that either. But she would still know when Orochimaru was near because the curse mark is still connected to her body, just not her chakra network. So they would continue on. The preliminaries would start. Everyone would be there. Naruto. Let's make this more entertaining. Instead of fighting Kiba would fight Hinata. Naruto would fight. He'd fight Neji. Kiba would get bodied by Hinata anyway because Kiba is a one-trick pony. So he'd get body bagged, but, well, not body bagged. He wouldn't really die. He'd just get bodied. But Neji would get mollywopped. One, because, well, Naruto hates arrogant people. Two, because, well, Neji basically kept trying. Naruto told him to give up, and he did not. He didn't really like doing that, but, Neji didn't really give up, so he kind of had to. 3, because, well, Naruto really just felt like it. Anyway, preliminaries to be over, Naruto would actually have, he would not have trained with Jiraiya. Actually, no. Jiraiya would have trained him, would have taught him the Rasengan, as he tried, not, Jiraiya tried to give Naruto the Toad summoning, but Naruto had said he already had a summoning, as he'd summoned his 300-handed Buddha. As Jiraiya would be shocked that he had blood style, as he'd ask Naruto where he got the summoning from, as Naruto would tell him that he got it from his grandpa Hashirama. As Jiraiya would say, wait, you mean the Hashirama Senju, the one that died 100 years ago? Naruto would say, yep. Jiraiya would be confused as he'd just say, okay. As he still trained Naruto, as technically, Naruto could go to either the Land of Monkeys or wherever the Wood Sage is. I don't remember where it is. I don't know where it is actually. So, or whatever the King of Wood Summoners is. The Elder Wood Summoners is. But I don't know what that is. So, I'm not going to apply it to the story. Actually, I'm just going to keep the Wood Summonings and the Monkey Summonings on the same planet. Well, in the same realm. They just are in two separate villages. Actually, no, they just share a village, and the King of Wood Summonings is a giant Buddha. Actually, it's Hashirama's 1,000-handed Buddha. As the 300-handed Buddha that Naruto has is its grandson. So yeah, so Naruto during this time would have started his training on Sage Mode, but it would take Naruto a while to get because well, Wood Sage Mode would seem like an incredibly complex Sage Mode, seeing as it is the second strongest after 6 past Sage Mode. So, you know, well, it take Naruto a while to do. So he would have started his training, but having only a month, he'd have to pause it after the month was over. Well, he'd actually have like 2 weeks because not 2 weeks, 3 weeks because he learned the Rasengan and it took him like 2 weeks to do that. So, Naruto would have started his training, but he wouldn't have finished it yet. As we continue on to the finals, where Naruto would have to fight Hinata. Naruto would go easy on her, considering Hinata is not the arrogant type, and she will give it her all. So Naruto decides that he won't necessarily hold back, but he won't kill her. So Naruto decides to go 5% of Mori's power, but not to use any of the artifacts. So he'd use his hands as they basically begin to fight, kind of like the way Neji and Hinata would have fought. But Naruto wouldn't be as brutal with his attacks, as he'd be countering Hinata's attacks, as not Hinata would be countering his. So they basically go blow for blow, because their fighting styles are extremely similar, because Naruto is not going for Taekwondo, he's going for Aki points, as Hinata's going for chakra points. And like I said, the Aki points and chakra points are extremely close together. So they basically be attacking the same points on each other's bodies, basically. As Hinata would be a bit confused that Naruto knows the gentle fist style. Well, that Naruto knows where her chakra points are. As Naruto, she'd ask Naruto this while they were basically trading blows. As Naruto would say, I'm not going for your chakra points, I'm going for your Aki points. As Hinata, well, the Byakugan can see pressure points, and Aki points are pressure points, basically. The Byakugan can also see pressure points, as she realized that Naruto has only been hitting pressure points and not chakra points, as he'd been hitting the pressure points directly, but through the process of, well, them being close together, it still canceled for chakra points. She realized this, she tried to reinforce her pressure points with chakra, but Naruto's strikes are too strong for the chakra barrier to handle. So they'd still be getting cancelled as they go blow for blow until Naruto would have disabled Hinata's arms. Well, one of Hinata's arms, which I'm just going to say it's her left arm, and Hinata would disable Naruto's right arm. As then, well, Hinata would unblock her left arm, as Naruto would then say, alright, let's get serious, as they would just fight casually at that point, as Naruto would then begin to use Free Taekwondo. Not Free Taekwondo, he'd use Hashirama's fighting style. So, he'd begin to fight using Hashirama's fighting style, which is completely different from the style he was using before. Because the style he was using before was just an acupoint variation of Free Taekwondo. But he decided not to use his legs at that point. So now he's using Hashirama's fighting style or the Senju fighting style. So Hinata would not be able to defend against this because the Senju fighting style is full of powerful strikes due to them having so much chakra. They wouldn't need to worry about wasting energy. So they put a lot of power into their strikes, I presume, much like the Uzumaki. So, well, Naruto would be putting powerful strikes into Hinata. Hinata would be attempting to block them, but because of how much power is in these strikes, she could block them, but not for long, as her bones would begin to crack and fracture. As it'd be, she blocked to the point where one of her arms was broken, and the other was disabled because she dislocated her shoulder. As Hinata would surrender at that point, but she wouldn't be able to raise her arm because one's broken and one she can't move the other one. So she'd surrender as the match would be over. So everyone would cheer Hinata despite the fact she lost. They'd still boo Naruto because the villagers still hate him. Naruto wouldn't care as he shake Hinata's hand. Well, the one she can use. Well, he wouldn't really shake it. He'd shake the dislocated shoulder after popping it back into place. As he'd then heal the broken arm with his plant style. As then he'd go back to the bleachers after talking with Hinata, and they have a good after saying they had a good fight. As Hinata would be more confident in this because I'd like it better when they could actually talk to each other and not Hinata just passing out from Naruto saying like 5 words to her. So anyway, well, the rest of the finals goes the same as canon. Sandal is still attacks. The Cloud Shinobi the Cloud sends out a few ninja to attack. Naruto still goes after Gaara. Well, actually, Gaara would have gone after Naruto because he wanted to kill him. So, Gaara, well, Naruto realizing Gaara was going to go after him, would have left to a forest where they'd be far away from the village, where the village wouldn't get destroyed if they went all out. Because he knows Gaara is more powerful than he lets on. So, Naruto would be sitting in a tree, Gaara would be sitting in another tree across from him in half Kaku form. Asgar is basically going insane, saying, I'll kill you over and over again. Ashikaku is basically yelling at him in his head to kill Naruto. Asgar basically laughs maniacally as he rushes at Naruto with half Shikaku form. Naruto basically roundhouse kicked him back to the tree he was sitting on. I know that's a bit dirty for Naruto to just roundhouse kick the guy after he rushes at him, but you know, he stands no chance against Naruto as he is right then. As he turned the full Shikaku, Naruto would summon his 1,000 headed Buddha, as this Buddha would scare the living shit out of Shikaku because he knows Hashirama, well, he knows that Hashirama used the wood summoning and wood style, as Shikaku would be a bit traumatized because he got manhandled by him when he captured the tailed beast. So when he saw what that was man in Buddha, he got scared. So anyway, Shikaku would be doing his best to destroy the Buddha, but it wouldn't do anything to it. As Naruto would basically do 300 palm strikes as it would reduce Shikaku to normal sand, as the guard would wake up. Although the attack would still be going on because this fight ended pretty quickly. As Naruto would talk to Jutsu they'd go back to the village. Well, Gar would escape with Tamari and Kankuro after Gar apologized to them. They escape. Naruto would actually summon Mori Huey after realizing that this is all a plot by Orochimaru to kill the Seto Kage. He and Mori Huey would rush over to the field immediately as we go to the third Kage, who at this moment had just been put into the Phoenix Formation seal, the barrier jutsu, pretty sure it's called. Orochimaru would have taken off his mask and said everything like that as he began summoning coffins. Well, he'd begin to bring out the coffins as he'd bring out Hashirama, Tobirama, but he'd be about to bring out Minato. The third Hokage would still stop Minato from being summoned, and he stopped Minato from being summoned because he knew Minato would easily destroy him because of his pure speed. As fighting Hashirama and Tobirama at once would be enough, but pretty sure they downgraded Hashirama when he revived this time, because there'd be no way the third Hokage could beat Hashirama. Sorry. I'm sorry for those of you who like the third Hokage. I think he's like really strong. He cannot beat Hashirama at all. There's no way. He could beat Tobirama pretty easily, but he cannot beat Hashirama. Especially not Hashirama with unlimited chakra. But, you know. As Hashirama would feel himself being drugged out of Naruto's mindscape. His soul would still be connected to Naruto's, but he'd be put in a different body. As Naruto would feel something off about his body as he checked to see if Hashirama was there. As Hashirama would be fading, he'd say, "Well, it seems I'm being revived. I hope we see each other soon, Naruto." Naruto would be a bit saddened by this, but he'd say, "I hope so," as Hashirama would disappear. Naruto would not know where Hashirama would be revived at, so he just continued on to the third Hokage. As he could see the barrier at this point, as he and Mori Huey, both with their own yaois and clouds, would basically hit the barrier from opposite sides, shattering it completely. As not long after it was shattered, they would just redo the formation, but Naruto and Mori had both managed to get in, as Naruto and Mori would land beside the third Hokage right after Hashirama and Tobirama had been resummoned. Naruto would be a bit relieved to see his great grandfather had been revived nearby, as he'd see Tobirama, as he'd recognize him, as he'd say, "Hello, grandfather." As Tobirama would look a bit confused, as then Hashirama would have to explain to him about Naruto and how all of that worked. As Tobirama would smile. He'd say, well, this would be the perfect chance to test out your strength. See if my idiot brother had trained you properly. Naruto would then say, well, it seems I may not end up fighting you, but I guess more Huey here could fight you. So, as he's around a third of my strength, but he should be able to fight. His Tobirama would get a bit mad about this, as he'd think Naruto's underestimating him, as he'd rush at Mori Huey, trying to basically destroy him instantly so he could fight Naruto himself. But Mori Huey would immediately counter Tobirama's attack as he'd send them into the other side of the barrier, where their fight would begin. As Naruto and Hashirama would be watching this, as Hashirama would not have been checking in on Naruto's strength after he trained with Moriden, so he would not know how strong he actually is. So Hashirama and Naruto would get into their stances, as Naruto would get in the stance not for Taekwondo and not for the Senju fighting style. He would actually get into the stance for his Monkey King fighting style, or his Sagabi fighting style, where he fused all the fighting styles he has into one. As he knows this fight with Hashirama is not going to be easy, as he summons the Dragon Armor, Yaoi, the Crown, and the Cloud. As then they begin to fight. Naruto would be at around 18% at this point, as he could use up to 25% of Origin's power, so 18% shouldn't hurt him very badly. It just tear a few muscles. Not any ligaments or anything, and no permanent injury should come from this, but he'll be hurt for a bit. So, Naruto would be fighting Hashirama. Hiruzen would be fighting Orochimaru, as he'd be overpowering Orochimaru. The main reason Hiruzen couldn't overpower Orochimaru in the main canon is because Hashirama kept using, Hashirama used Deep Force Emergence, and it trapped the third Hokage in a corner to where Orochimaru could stab him with the Izanagi blade. So, yeah. Anyway, Naruto and Hashirama fight begin. Naruto will basically be gauging the strength of this survived Hashirama. As Hashirama never actually showed Naruto his full power, he only went up to about 50% to demonstrate each of each of Naruto's training. As he didn't really train him fully either, he just gave him the basics and told him the rest of his jutsus were in the scroll ceiling, which Naruto stole, got Deep Force Emergence, and the Wood Summon. And after that point, Hashirama stopped checking in on him. So, he knows Naruto has the Wood Summoning and Deep Force Emergence just like him. Hashirama would actually use the Deep Force Emergence at this point. Naruto would counter with his own, as they'd basically tangle with each other and just cancel each other out. Hashirama would be using his Senju fighting style. Naruto would be using his Monkey King fighting style, as they'd basically be going blow for blow, and so Naruto increases his power to 20%. As Naruto would begin to overpower Hashirama, as he called the cloud over to basically destroy any type of jutsu Hashirama sends, as he telecaught the strike at any jutsu Hashirama sends towards him. The cloud does, as it's not actually striking Hashirama because he knows it's not going to do much damage to him, as he has to destroy the body in order for him to completely die again. Well, in order for the soul to be released, and he could basically go back to his mind state. So, Naruto, being resourceful, would think of an idea. Well, yeah. as he'd make a bunch of monkey clones. Well, he wouldn't make a bunch of monkey clones. He'd actually summon his pretty sure he had a private regiment of monkeys that he like trained or something like that. He'd summon them, which he hadn't summoned them at all this whole time. As Hashirama would have made a bunch of wood clones. Because I'm gonna say he could do that. I'm not sure if he could in Naruto, but he could do that here. Because Tobirama did make the Shadow Clone Jutsu. But why couldn't Hashirama make wood clones? So their clones would actually begin to fight each other as wood clone as well. Naruto's monkey clones would make shadow clones. As Hashirama's clones would also make shadow clones because, well, why not? As it's basically like a mini war going on. It's like 2,000 monkey clones with the shadow clones against 3,000 wood clones with shadow clones. So the monkeys are outnumbered like 1.5 to 1, which honestly isn't very much. But seeing as a good half of these are shadow clones, well, it's going to be a hard fight. As shadow clones can only take one hit and they're done. So the wood clones are about as durable as monkey clones, so they're basically on par with each other. As Naruto and Hashirama are doing their own individual battle, as Hashirama eventually begins to take damage, but is regening pretty quickly. So Naruto begins to try to use Yaoi as he begins to break off parts of Hashirama's body faster than they can regenerate. As wood clones begin to disappear and turning into chakra to help Hashirama heal. As eventually he basically extends Yaoi to 50% of its full length, which Yaoi's full length can reach the moon. Just telling y'all that. Yeah, Yaoi's full length can reach the moon. So he extends Yaoi to 50% of its full length, which it will stretch. I'm gonna say it stretches from the Leaf Village to the Cloud Village. As he swings Yaoi, it does hit the mountain that connects the leaf to the sand, as it basically wipes it off the map completely, turning it into a plateau. As he hits Hashirama with it, as it basically destroys his body completely. It did miss Tobirama because he dodged it, and it missed Orochimaru because he dodged it. As Hashirama's soul would be released, as instead of disintegrating like normal, it'd fly into Naruto. As the third Hokage would have thought that was strange, as Naruto would just say that he'd explain it later. As Dry would have saw this as well, because Dry wouldn't have left yet. So, as we skip over to Mori, Huey, and, well, Tobirama. As their fight would have begun, Tobirama, not Tobirama, but Mori Huey would have been using, he would have actually been going all out, using his pole skill, basically, and his cloud to fly around Tobirama, dodging all of his water dragons and, well, all the other attacks he has, as well as his shadow clones and his flying thunder god, which would be incredibly difficult for Morihue to deal with because he could teleport anywhere in that general area, throw a water dragon at him, teleport again, and do the same thing over and over again because he's a Senju and has that much chakra. So Morihue would be having a tough time with this. So, but it wouldn't have the refined quality that the Flying Raijin does, so he cannot mark a certain area. He just teleport within the general area of about, I don't know, like 50, no, a good 200 feet around Morihue. And you can attack from anywhere in that 200 feet range. So, but Tobirama has adapted himself to this because he did invent the jutsu, so he adapted to attacking from anywhere. He judges distance, then throw an appropriate jutsu from that area. So Mori Huey would be having a difficult time because he doesn't know where Tobirama is until he attacks. So he's decided not to look for him, but sense him. As there's a faint rise in chakra, there's a faint chakra signature whenever he teleports, which has always been the weakness of the Flying Raijin. The chakra signature that appears whenever they finish teleporting. As Mori Huey would have sensed this, as he would have teleported behind him, as Mori Huey would have swung his clone Yowie, which would have hit Tobirama, killing him again, and he would have been sealed away. As well, as Orochimaru and the third Hokage would be battling, the third Hokage would be bodying Orochimaru. Sorry to say, if it took Orochimaru, Hashirama Senju, and Tobirama Senju just to evenly match the third Hokage, then Orochimaru is nothing compared to him. Especially not when he's angry, which he'd be pretty mad that he attacked the Leaf Village in the middle of the Chunin exam. So, well, you know, he really has no other reason to be mad at him other than that. But you know, Orochimaru would be getting body bagged, and well, he actually ended up having to escape. Uh, I'm gonna say Sasuke does not go with him. He stays in the village. But Naruto, before Naruto leaves, he makes Sasuke a promise that he'll train to become as strong as him, so that when he gets back from training with Jiraiya, that well, they can be on even terms. They will never be on even terms. I don't like making the side characters as powerful as the main character, but Sasuke will be pretty close to him when he gets his Susanoo, Mangekyo, and all that stuff. Speaking of which, Sasuke will get his Mangekyo during the Chunin exams because he basically saw Sakura almost die, and he realized that he actually cared for her, but he never accepted it. So he did unlock his Mangekyo. He killed the ninja who tried to do it. Sakura would realize that Sasuke actually cares for her. As she pushed harder for Sasuke to go on a date with her, Sasuke, realizing that he actually does care for Sakura, would actually go on a date with her. As well, we skip to when Naruto goes to the third Hokage's office. The third Hokage saying he's gonna retire, but before all that, we skip to the day before. Well, we go back to the day before, where Naruto would have been explaining to the third Hokage and Jiraiya about how Hashirama is in his body and how he learned all of this stuff from him. So, you know, he would have to explain how Hashirama's soul is kind of bodied with his. So no matter what, until the end of time, they're stuck together. Naruto would would make a clone, Hashirama would take over it, transform it into himself, as he explained the whole thing. As Hiruzen and Jiraiya would have been shocked to meet the first Hokage. Pretty sure Hiruzen actually met him, but Jiraiya did not, because the first Hokage died when Hiruzen was pretty young. So, and Hiruzen didn't really start training Jiraiya until he was in his early 30s, I'm pretty sure, during the Second Great Ninja War. Well, before the Second Great Ninja War. So, Naruto. Well, not. What am I talking about? So, the third Hokage knows, and Jiraiya knows about Hashirama, They accepted and they moved on. As we skip to the next day, where Jiraiya is explaining how he's gonna be leaving to train Naruto, the third Hokage said, I actually have an announcement as well. As Jiraiya would be curious, as he'd say, well, what was your announcement? The third Hokage says, I've decided to announce my retirement in a 2 weeks time. But before I can announce my retirement, I need you to find a replacement. As he first opposite to Jiraiya, as Jiraiya would say, he's not fit to be Hokage because of his spine network, as there's a lot of things he needs to deal with at the moment. So the Hokage says, well, if you can't become Hokage, find Tsunade and see if she'll become Hokage. As Jiraiya would immediately have doubts, saying that there's no way she's going to become Hokage. She left the village years ago. Why would she want to come back now? As Naruto then says, because she has family in the village. Jiraiya would be a bit confused, as in Naruto would have to explain how he's Hashirama's great-great-grandson, as basically saying that Tsunade is his grandmother. As well, as Jiraiya would kind of just be like, oh, okay. So that makes you my godson, my best friend's grandson? Okay. But anyway, as they would leave, they'd go find Tsunade. Orochimaru would still have his arm sealed by the third Hokage, just not the Reaper Death seal, so Tsunade could unseal them, but she wouldn't get the chance because Naruto and Jiraiya would find Tsunade before Orochimaru does, but Orochimaru would find her like the next day, so the same battle would still happen. But first, let's skip to when Naruto and Jiraiya find Tsunade. As Naruto and Jiraiya, no, let's skip to the encounter with Itachi and Kisame. As not as Pain would know that Naruto is incredibly strong because he's in the Bingo book, and he's now at the top of the A rank charts as an A rank ninja because he did defeat Shikaku in not even 20 minutes. So he's at the top of the A rank, and Shinobi very nearly S rank, but not yet because nobody knows his full power. As Itachi and Kisame were warned that Naruto is an incredibly strong shinobi, and they shouldn't joke around with him. As Kisame would just take this the way Kisame takes everything, just laugh about it, underestimate him, and keep on moving. As Itachi would actually take this seriously, as he would be holding nothing back when he fights Naruto, unlike in canon. So Naruto would Itachi and Kisame would knock on Naruto's door like in canon. The same thing would happen. But when Naruto fights Itachi and Kisame, Naruto realizes Samehada drains chakra, so he decides that for this battle, he's not going to use Taekwondo. He's going to use his plant style to counteract Samehada's chakra absorption by absorbing Samehada's chakra. So whenever Samehada absorbs him, or tries to absorb chakra from Naruto, the nearby plants will absorb some of Samehada's chakra. Eventually, as we skip like 5 minutes later, Samehada would be broken, would be losing scales because it'd be running out of chakra and it'd be becoming weaker. As Kisame would be pretty mad that, Samehada isn't doing what it's supposed to, but he'd realize how much the plants have grown in the area. As it would be known, Naruto does have some sort of wood style, but it seems to pertain more to plants. So he'd realized that the plants had been absorbing all the Samehada chakra this whole time, and he'd just been attacking recklessly, giving all of his chakra, all of Samehada chakra to the plants. Then he get even angrier as he just attacked normally, going into a shark form. As Naruto would basically body Kisame so badly he dies. I'm just gonna kill Kisame off here because I don't like his character. He was stupid. He was literally the dumbest of the Akatsuki members. He's worse than Deidara. He was worse than Deidara. Yeah. So Naruto Naruto would kill Kisame and take Samehada, giving it some of its chakra back and keeping it for himself. Well, no, he wouldn't keep it for himself. He'd actually, well, we'll get into that in a second. Well, let me go fix something. When he went to say he's gonna train Naruto, when Jiraiya went to say he was gonna train Naruto at Okage's office, he actually said he was going to do it soon, but not then. The third Okage actually asked him to find Tsunade first. So that's how that worked. So anyway, Itachi, being extremely cautious, would try to use Infinite Tsukuyomi on Naruto, but Naruto, being in sync with the Nine Tails, becoming a perfect Jinchuriki, would be immune to it. So Infinite Tsukuyomi would not work on Naruto. Itachi would be confused on why it's not working. He'd still appear in the void, but there'd be nothing there. So he'd leave the void as he'd immediately feel a punch coming to his face as he'd be sent flying out of the building, as he'd land next to Jiraiya. As Itachi, realizing he's screwed, would leave, like as fast as he can. As he report back to the base that Genjutsu don't work on Naruto, and that he can absorb chakra through his plants, and that Kisame died, and he took Samehada. Pain would be a bit annoyed by this because even though Kisame was stupid, he made really good cannon fodder. My guy would still do the same entrance as normal. Itachi would have attacked the village, body Kakashi, all of that would have happened. Sasuke would still have gone there. Like I said, my guy still does a dynamic entry on Jiraiya. Jiraiya knocks the absolute shit out of him because it was fucking funny, but not for Jiraiya. Anyway, well, Naruto ends up giving Samehada to Sasuke because Naruto has Yaoi, and he decides that he doesn't need another weapon. He has Yaoi, and that he's better off with a spear. Well, I meant with the not with a spear. What am I talking about, bro? He's better off with a staff than a sword, especially a long sword like Samehada, which because it doesn't fit his attack style, as his attack style leads more towards flexibility, which a staff gives you great flexibility due to the flat ends on it, which allow you to maneuver more. So anyway, they find Tsunade. As Naruto would know that Tsunade is his grandmother, due to Hashirama explaining that, he met Minato and Kushina in the afterlife, as Kushina would have explained her heritage to him, because he would not have been alive when she was born, so he wouldn't know about it. As Hashirama would have explained Naruto's heritage to him. At least the Senju side, he would not know about Minato. Somehow, some way, he would not know about Minato. But Minato was still a Namikaze, like normal. But as they walk into the bar, Tsunade would be raging drunk like normal. Shizune would be telling her to stop drinking, but she'd keep on drinking because, well, she'd drink her pain away. Naruto walks up to her and says, "Grandmother, will you continue to just drink your life away, or will you find yourself a new one?" As she just looks up and she says, "Who are you? Well, who are you? And what are you doing in a bar? You don't look 18. Well, whatever the legal age in Japan is. Well, in this Naruto world is. My best guess would be 18, but, well, you know. Naruto would then say, well, if you stop drinking, maybe I'll tell you." And she'd grumble and say, okay. But then start bad mouthing the Hokages because she really does not care. Actually, I'm going to say Naruto knows about Minato because I can't just leave it like that, no. Naruto would get, like, really pissed off because he has some sort of relationship to every Hokage up to that point. Hashirama is his great-great-grandfather. Tobirama is his great-great-uncle. The third Hokage is like a grandfather to him. Minato is his father, so, you know. He's kinda has a deep relationship to all the Hokage. And he's met all of them but Minato before, so he can't he can't really feel much from Minato other than the fact that he is his father and that she insulted his father, so he'd still be pretty mad about it. As he'd get pretty pissed off as he challenged her almost immediately. As well, Naruto's physical strength without Moijin's power would be around a third of Tsunade's, and his physical strength using Morijin's power at about 5% would be equal to that of Tsunade. So he still challenges Tsunade, and Tsunade still makes the same drunken bet, but she doesn't get a chance to use the weird earthquake thing she did the first time because Naruto would knock her across the town. And the shockwave would destroy a lot of things. Mostly just small carts and knock over a lot of trees. As she gets sent flying into the forest, as she realized that this is something serious, but she wouldn't activate her mark of 100 healings because she realized it's even though she's drunk, it's not serious enough to take years off her life just to win a stupid challenge. So she'd go back as she tried to hit Naruto. Naruto would be blocking her attacks, but he'd be pretty surprised at how strong she is physically, as she and him were around the same. Well, he'd actually begin to feel a bit of soreness from her attacks because they're around as strong as his. As he realized where he got all of his monster strength from. Well, some of his monster strength from. As he began to smile. As well, he and Tsunade would still be trading blows. Just letting you know, they're still in the middle of this town in front of this bar, so they'd still be trading blows, destroying more and more each time they trade blows or clashes, until eventually Naruto actually notices his surroundings and looks around at the town as he sees it's like halfway destroyed. So he he actually just he actually decides to knock Tsunade out so they won't damage the town anymore. As Naruto knocked her out, he apologizes to the townspeople as he begins to rebuild their houses. Tsunade would have woken up at this point, realizing that Naruto knocked her out. she'd be pretty salty that she lost, but she wouldn't have time to worry about that because she'd have to rebuild the town with Naruto. So they'd rebuild the town. They'd still have to fight Orochimaru because, well, like I said, Orochimaru still talked to her. So, well, they'd still fight. Naruto would end up with Sengon and Kabuto to that rock, which, honestly, because I hate Kabuto, he'll die. He dies. Well, he doesn't die. He'll be seriously injured. I can't kill Kabuto yet because he's important in the future. Not literally FBI, chill. But, you know, Orochimaru would actually be being beaten by Jiraiya and Tsunade because Jiraiya decided to start training again after he saw how strong Naruto was. So Orochimaru would be being pushed back to the point where, well, Tsunade wouldn't be knocked out or whatever happened to her. I'm pretty sure she was knocked out. No, she wasn't knocked out. But, well, she'd still be afraid of blood and all of that. And Naruto would join in the fight with Orochimaru. Orochimaru would have actually, since he has a body he can use his full power with, he would actually be able to overpower Naruto. Because Naruto isn't going all out, as he injured Naruto quite a bit. As Naruto would have, he'd be bloodied. Tsunade would have to overcome her fear of blood as canon. So Naruto would be healed and everything. As he'd basically get a Zenkai from it because I wanted to. As Naruto would wake up as they'd head back to the village. Naruto, Flying Bear, would get there about 2 days earlier because even though the Sannin are on foot, they move incredibly quickly, so it wouldn't take them much longer than Naruto. Naruto will report into the third Hokage, telling her about what happened. As 2 days later, the Sannin would arrive. They'd be pretty mad at Naruto because he kind of left them in that town by themselves. And Naruto just scratched back his head. He'd say, I thought you guys wanted some time alone. As Jiraiya would kind of just smile and say, that's my boy Naruto. As Tsunade would punch him as he'd get knocked out. And, well, they'd report into the third Hokage. We'd skip a week later where the third Hokage would retire and Tsunade would take over as Hokage. As well, the third Hokage would have told Tsunade about Jiraiya and his idea to take Naruto on a training trip. Because Jiraiya still knocked her on the ground. As after Tsunade became Hokage, she approved Jiraiya and Naruto's 3-year training mission. As this one be ending it off. Don't forget to ship ideas in the comments because I don't really know what I ship for this. But if I have to make one, I will. And, well, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Please, I want more of you guys to subscribe because I checked my analytics. It's like 97% of you who aren't subscribed at all. But I want more of you guys to subscribe. Anyway, please leave comments because I like to read comments. I like using comments to make myself better. Pretty sure that's the whole point of the comment section in the first place. But I'll see you guys later. Peace.